And we're back live on Spreaker.com, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm Ryan Thomas. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really wanted to continue tonight's show, which, as I said in the opening segment, where I discussed Kyler Murray deciding to elect to play NFL football rather than MLB baseball. I paid some respects to some individuals that I've met during this 3-year journey that I embarked on 3 years ago, obviously. This podcast journey, some of the people that I've had the opportunity to work with, and I'll continue to work with. And then obviously I'll be announcing some new information on that within the next few days. I'm really working something out here. Just give me a minute. Just give me some time. You will enjoy it once it's official. I'm thinking sometime in the spring, because it will coincide with the NFL draft. But we'll see. We'll see. We'll keep your eyes open for that one. So, paid some respects to some people that I've worked with the last few years, and I really appreciate everybody that's listened or watched this show for even a minute or two. I just want you to know that I appreciate you. I also want to know, even if you've, given me positive comment, an agreement or disagreement, that's okay. I don't mind people that disagree with me. I don't mind people that agree with me either. Either way, I look at them as one and the same. Anyone that agrees or anyone that disagrees, you're tuning in, you're dialed in, you're letting your voice be heard, which I think is something that everybody should do. Everybody should let their voice be heard. And even, there's times where I see people post things and I'm like, what the heck is that guy talking about? And I could even say, what the heck is that guy talking about? That is letting your voice be heard, and it's also creating debate and creating discussion that nobody should take personally. I know I don't, but I know some people, can sometimes take things personally in the midst of a sports debate, and, it's just sports talk, guys and girls. Nothing too crazy. We're not curing cancer or, ending world hunger or anything like that. And if we pretend like we are, then we're fools. Let's be quite honest. All right. So that being said, we got a big fight coming up January 19th, this Saturday night, ESPN Plus, UFC 1 on ESPN Plus or ESPN Plus. UFC, I'm going to go with this. UFC on ESPN Plus 1. We'll just call it that. Henry Cejudo defends the UFC flyweight title against UFC bantamweight champion TJ Dillashaw. This is a stacked card. Greg Hardy taking on a guy that I don't even know. And it's unfortunate that I do know Greg Hardy because I know him for the wrong reasons. And I really wish he wasn't on this card. We'll just throw that out there. Paige Van Zandt, Rachel Ostovich, Donald Cerrone, the young stud Hernandez, I believe is his last name. And I'm drawing a blank right now. I know his name, and I just can't think of it. This always happens to me. I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's late night Thomas Take Talk, but I don't know. But there's a lot of really good fights on this ESPN Plus card. And I have ESPN Plus. I've been a subscriber ever since it started about 8-9 months ago. And I've really enjoyed it. The content on there has gotten better as the months have gone by. Detail with Peyton Manning, fantastic. Huge lover of that. They do real great film study. It's not just pointing out the obvious. It's pointing out the intricate facets of the game, the X's and O's, the formations, the adjustments, the side adjustments, everything broken down to a T by the greatest to ever diagnose a defense at the quarterback position, Peyton Manning, the doctor at quarterback, the sheriff, as John Gruden once called him. So ESPN Plus, this merger with the UFC, I think it's going to go very well. I've noticed a lot of content already being pushed over to ESPN Plus that is UFC content, and they've done a fantastic job of putting the right content on that app, on that streaming subscription service. And that's the way of the future now. We know that. Netflix, obviously, the first one that comes to mind that had, real great success. Hulu has really grown. Amazon Prime Video, you have that now. They are dialed in with the National Football League, where Hulu is kind of in the network business, and then Netflix has generated so much money that they've been able to make their own original movies with A-list actresses like Sandra Bullock and Robert Redford and all these, big name people, of years past or of recent years. Will Smith, just to name a few. That is really fantastic that's the technology way of the present and the future that has come about, these last, 10 years. And now that the sports world is getting in on it with ESPN, I really, really enjoy that. I really think it's awesome. And I think that it is great that the UFC hopped on that bandwagon. I think it's perfect timing. But what sucks about it is, me personally, I got to figure out a way to connect my ESPN Plus account to either my PlayStation or to my television. Because as of now, I'll be watching Henry Cejudo and TJ Dillashaw on my phone. I have an iPhone X, so I'm not complaining about it too much. But I'll be in my room, in my bedroom, watching the fights on my phone, which kind of suck. But at the same time, it'll be a Saturday night. I usually work long hours on a Saturday night. I actually will be doing some traveling that Saturday, heading to Pittsburgh for my cousin's son's birthday party. And I'll have to, wind down, after the travel. And it will be nice in a way. So I can't really complain too much. But at the same time, I wish that this fight was on ESPN. I wish that the first one wasn't on ESPN Plus. This being that it's a title fight. I really thought that this would be an ESPN on national television fight, but nonetheless, I thought the card deserved it. But they really want people to start subscribing to this app. And as of now, they have over 2 million subscribers. I think that's going to really grow rapidly as these months go on. So in the second half of this segment here, I want to give you my breakdown on Cejudo and Dillashaw. Cejudo, the 125-pound champ, he just came off the best victory of his career, arguably beating one of the best of all time, and Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. And TJ Dillashaw coming off a hellacious performance against Cody Garbrandt. The second time he had fought Garbrandt, the second time he had knocked out Garbrandt, this time quicker than the first. So really, really, both fighters, to say that both fighters are riding an all-time high right now, I think would be a massive, massive understatement. Cejudo, former Olympic gold medalist in wrestling, now the UFC flyweight champion. He's fighting for his legacy. He's fighting for his name. This guy hates to lose. This guy loves to win. He's the ultimate competitor. And the same thing can be said outside of the fact that he's an Olympic champ. TJ Dillashaw is not an Olympic champ, but he's a two-time UFC champ at bantamweight, lost his belt, regained it, got it back, and has rattled off one of the best careers in the UFC bantamweight division's history. And it can be said that he's ultra-competitive. He hates to lose. So this is a fight between two super ultra competitors. And I really love the fact that this is a matchup that Dana White heard Henry Cejudo demand after winning that fight versus Demetrius Johnson, albeit in close, razor-thin split decision fashion. Fight that I actually thought Mighty Mouse won, but that's another point for another day. Cejudo says, I want to fight TJ or Cody, depending on who wins, because they both fought on the same night that night, back in August. And I really loved that. that Dana actually listened to the fighter and said, hey, you want it, you got it. Now Demetrious Johnson isn't even with the company anymore, so that rematch kind of floundered, and Demetrious Johnson's fighting in ONE FC after the UFC made a trade in which Demetrious Johnson went to ONE FC in Singapore and Asia for Funky Ben Askren, who's been a huge name at welterweight, the 170-pound class, for such a long time. So that kind of made this fight happen. Other things that are completely out of the control of both fighters that will be fighting in this fight on January 19th happened. There were other factors as to why this fight happened, and it didn't even involve Cejudo or TJ Dillashaw. It involved another fighter. I want to throw that out there for the fans that are wondering why this fight's happening and why did Demetrious Johnson not get a rematch. In case you haven't heard, Demetrious Johnson isn't even with the UFC anymore. So really, the supremacy of the flyweight division is on the line, though, in this fight. If Henry Cejudo goes out there and starches TJ Dillashaw, the UFC flyweight division lives on. If TJ Dillashaw goes in there and starches Henry Cejudo, I think the UFC flyweight division is as good as dead, because the UFC has been reviewing getting rid of the division, and it's a division that has had a tough time maintaining its drawing power. But I'm wondering why they would get rid of it at a time where the reason it wasn't maintaining drawing power is because you had a champion in Demetrious Johnson who was running over everyone, beating everyone soundly. And Cejudo is a guy that you can market, former Olympic champ, current UFC, former Olympic gold medalist, former number one contender turned champion. So there's a lot to market there. He rose above the only loss of his MMA career and was able to put it together. And then, even if TJ were to win it, I think what would be next would be very interesting for that division if it were to stay in the fold. As far as who I have as my pick for this fight, the fact that TJ weighed around 150, 152 for his fights with Cody Garbrandt, and he was fighting as a 135er, ballooning up from 135 on weigh-in morning to 152 come fight night, which is less than a day, literally, probably 8 hours from fight time. Maybe a little bit more than that, but the fact that you balloon that much weight that quickly shows just how much he depleted himself at 135, and now he's dropping down even more to 125. And I gotta say, he looks terrible. He looks very sick. He looks very thin. Does not look lean. Does not look mean. He just looks drained physically. And I think that that's going to take a toll on him as far as getting back up in weight at that quick time frame, that quick window. I think it's going to be very tough, and I see Cejudo winning this fight and using his style to wear down TJ Dillashaw. And I know TJ Dillashaw might be the better mixed martial artist. Henry Cejudo might be a little bit raw in the stand-up department in comparison to TJ, who's one of the best strikers ever at that weight class, at bantamweight especially, fighting someone in a smaller weight class. There's reasons to think that TJ Dillashaw could go out there and win this fight, but if any of those reasons involve the fight, it would make sense. But the one dynamic, the fight before the fight, is the weight cut. And I'm very worried about TJ Dillashaw right now. Very, very worried. And I think even the hard, number one fan club TJ Dillashaw fans should be worried about that. And I admire both fighters. I think they're both great. I think this is a great matchup, coming at the perfect time on ESPN Plus, the first ESPN Plus event in UFC history. So it'll be very fun, and I look forward to watching the fights. You should definitely subscribe to ESPN Plus. I'm not just saying that so the UFC helps, help me get a job at the UFC someday. I'm saying that because I do believe that ESPN Plus is an awesome app. There's a lot of really cool stuff on it. Check it out. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of the fights too. I got Cejudo winning it, though, and defending the flyweight title. Flyweight division, the UFC, will live on.